Okay, moderators. Okay, fine. Going live. Hello, everyone. I don't know why I said that like I was a kindergarten teacher.
Hi, kids. Oh, let's not repeat that on here.
Oh, no, I don't
I gotta check that out.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. Though I do want to move this up a little bit.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right.
But anyway, welcome back to our fun-filled show.
Yes.
I don't want my. Okay, so this is a part of it. Going live.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Is It Crazy or Is It God, where we're here discussing our takeaways from reading the Bible. So, those of you who don't know, we've been reading the Bible together on a reading plan for a little over a year now, and we're not even really at the halfway mark, but it's okay. We're weeks away from the halfway mark, but it's about going at your own pace.
It is,
especially after this week.
And the most important thing is reading the Bible on your own time.
I think the most important thing is reading for understanding.
Yeah, but instead of that
goes the same. Yeah,
in
your own time.
We're taking our own time to read it, and not pastors talk about that all the time. Like, read your Bible, just not on Sundays. So and it kind of helps me out and brings this calmness when I read. Man. It's like I'm learning more and more, not only what words mean and how to pronounce some words, and I'm always looking.
I'm learning that.
We're all. It expands your vocabulary for sure because we have to look up words in here
for sure.
I think destitute is like.
Put my water over here.
Is it lower than poor? I don't really get that wrong. I don't have my cell phone.
Destitute is it's poor. It's maybe I don't know if it's lower than poor.
But it meant poor. It means poor. Yeah, because I learned that in law school. There's this law where you can't sue somebody that's destitute.
Oh, okay. I
was like, damn, what's destitute? It's just to me it sounds. When somebody says you're poor,
it sounds like prostitute. I'm not gonna lie.
But look, when somebody says you're destitute, it's gonna be like, golly, man.
Yeah, I guess it's
called poor.
Well, I'd rather be called wealthy.
Or well off. But I that was just interesting.
Oh, you know what? I needed to go make sure to do a sound check. Why don't you tell us how your week was? I can still hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, she's going to do the sound check, guys. Testing. Okay. So my week was good. I got back into the gym. I want to get consistent with my morning and night routine. That's all I talk about. I know you hear me say it all the time, and it's in the Bible too, but that's why they say consistency is difficult, because it's like you seen that movie Groundhog Day, when Bill Murray gets up and it's the same day over and over again. That is, in my mind, being consistent. Is doing the same thing over and over again and not getting all caught up. It was yes, Groundhog Day, man. Great movie if you haven't seen it. But that's what I'm striving for, where I look up in 30 days and it's like I've been doing the same thing for 30 days.
Speak on it.
So that's kind of how I view success, and how I view success is different than a lot of people. I think I've heard this from people, but actually one of my favorite players, shout out, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. But he said the Mamba mentality is about, following your dreams and becoming who you are, right? To me, that's reading the Bible and fearing God. And by fearing God, He's going to direct you into what you what you should be the best version of yourself. That's success, being the best version of yourself. And in order to do that, you have to not. You have to. I don't know why I'm doing this. It reminds me of YouTube be doing this anyway.
Best version of yourself.
Your best version of yourself, but you have to remember, in order to get there, you have to be an outlier, and being an outlier is following God's instructions, because everybody else is not. Everybody else is going with the norm, and and that's what success is. It's you, in a word to God, and being God's best version and trying to be better than that. But it's difficult to do because you got to be an outlier, and you got to, like, what I'm learning is waking up early, right? It's a couple things that I've done to push myself mentally, because that's what it's about. It's not real physical, it's just mental, right? Waking up early in the morning and reading the Bible with you, talking to God. Like, I Faith will tell you this, like, I don't do, the first time I pick up my phone is probably like 9 a.m. I try to wake up around 4. So that there's a lot of, okay, I'll listen to my phone in the gym, right? I got to listen to music while I work out. But before that, I try to connect with God.
Yeah.
That's my whole purpose in the morning, because during the day, it's a lot of things going on, right? My job needs me. Friends are texting, I'm on Instagram, just, like a regular person. But if you take that time to meditate, to pray, because meditation is sitting in silence. And to me, that's talking to God. That's letting God speak to you with no distractions. Saying your affirmations. My affirmations have God all in there.
Yeah.
Right? My first 3 affirmations are God. Right? Then visualization, sitting in silence and visualizing your goals. That's another form of you connecting with God, because you're visualizing what God has. Not only are you visualizing what God has given you, instructions, he can also speak to you because you're sitting in silence. Yeah. That's the best form to talk to God. And then I pray. So, like, there's no phone, guys. I take my morning routine very serious. Because I think that's the time that your ideas come to you, and those ideas are from God. Whether you act on them or not are a different story.
So I want to preface this a little bit, because I think that is the way that you do it.
Yeah.
I think when you have a relationship with God, and you're listening for his words, for his, like, nudge.
Yeah.
But if you don't, right, you're just sitting there, some of your thoughts cannot, you know what I'm saying, can take you away. Some of your visualizations could be, you know what I'm saying? So I get where you're coming from, and I know that's what you do. Yeah. But it's what you do in addition to connecting with God. It's like those are your channels to do that. Yes. I wanted to be so open about it, just because if people are expecting to just be like, oh, I'm going to visualize, I'm going to talk to God. It's like, that's great. You know, you can do that, but it takes a little bit of practice sometimes, especially when you come from maybe like some negative beliefs or some, what do they call them? Limiting beliefs about what you can do and what God can do. But I'll get into that a little bit later when I talk about what I learned this week. But
it's a skill. You're right. I still struggle with it.
But it is an opportunity to do that. It's an
opportunity, but it is difficult because you got the world coming at you. And then just because you're in silence in the morning, and if you're trying to talk to God, there's somebody else that's going to be combating that. There is. It's hard, you know. It's hard to like focus, but that's what I want to get in the habit. So, how was your week? That was really long-winded.
No, that was good. Remember, I was doing a sound check too. Sound check meaning, you know, a few weeks ago when we went live, our audio was all messed up, and it was because I didn't have everything set up the way we have it now. But I just wanted to make sure for those people who are watching live that we are, you know, good. Am I also recording this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's in the background. See it?
No.
Right there.
Is it recording though? Oh, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You know what? I'm so weird about this, guys, because what happens is when you have a show or a podcast or whatever, it's just like you just expect things to go wrong. And so unfortunately, I'm just like, you know, anyway. How was my week? My week was decent. I think it was better than last week. So I don't remember working out this week. I don't think I did. Did we go to the gym at all this week? You went. I don't think I worked out this week, did I?
I think I went.
That thing went right past me. So, but I had a good week. So what happens is so this is so funny because he just finished talking about how great his mornings are. Let me tell you about the other side. So basically, when you are disciplined like James and you don't touch your phone for, you know, except to do the Lord's work in the mornings, like, you know, your days are probably much more fabulous than the alternative, because what I do, unfortunately, is I roll over right in the middle of the night. And one good thing that I do is I listen to these affirmations on YouTube at night, which, you know, you can listen to scriptures, you can listen to like affirmations about anything. I would be careful though, just because you don't know what they're saying, especially if you're going to sleep, if you haven't heard it before. But there's this channel called Abide, and they have some really good affirmations, and they talk like they speak psalms and stuff like that, and I like to listen to that in the middle of the night because I feel like it through osmosis. Like sometimes I'll wake up and I'll hear it, and that has actually helped me for when I wake up in the mornings, because I used to wake up in the morning and just be like bah humbug, like it's time to wake up. And this week that didn't happen. I feel like I had a really good encountering with myself in the morning. Now, I did not get to the gym like I wanted to, but I had a much better morning routine. Like as far as being positive and things like that. We definitely read this week. We had like sort of a truncated schedule, so we had to do some catching up. But we read all of the stuff that we said we were going to read, and that's always helpful to me. I noticed that I didn't really do my devotionals as well as I wanted to do, but this week was just challenging for me. I gotta stop making this excuse, but whenever I'm busy at work, I find that I sacrifice things that I need for my personal life so that I could show up and do it, because we had like a lot of big projects that were happening all at once this week. So I feel like, and then a few weeks ago when we had that, I had something else happen at work where some people were coming in from out of town. I wanted to make sure they were all straight, so I altered my own schedule to make sure they had what they needed, and I sacrificed some stuff there. But good thing is this: I had a decent week and I was able to really make some connections and say, oh, your weeks are better when you do this, right? So I definitely have solidified for myself like what my needs are in the mornings in order to set my day off right. And I was able to use some of that information just from looking, like just really observing myself. I was able to use some of those things to help me last week. And I feel like I had a successful week as far as being positive. However, I now need to incorporate those disciplines that I started off the year with, and that we had gotten on track. James is really good about this, but I'm not. And another thing that he does that I don't do is, like I said, I'll wake up and I'll look right at Instagram, or I'll look at the news sometimes, which I haven't been doing as much recently, but it does have an impact, because you literally are just allowing anybody in the door, right? You think about like somewhere where they have security, where they're like making sure people don't have weapons, making sure people don't, aren't acting crazy when they're coming through and are going to be a danger possibly to somebody who's in the space that they're guarding. Mm-hmm. And when I wake up in the morning and I literally just look at my phone, sometimes I'm looking for something, like sometimes I'm looking, which is also not good. Like sometimes I'm looking at my work emails. Sometimes I'm looking, sometimes I'm looking for something specifically, but the phone is so dangerous because once you pick it up, you're liable to do anything. So a lot of times I find myself on social media and letting anything in. And when you're like so sensitive like that in the morning, it's really, a gamble. You can really start your day off. Luckily, I didn't get into anything bad last week, but overall my week was good, to answer your question. But I definitely have some observations and tools to better navigate in this next month. And I'm like so excited for February. I don't know why. Like my birthday is coming up, but I really don't care about that. I'm literally just like, oh, I learned so much about myself in January. I can't wait to apply this information to my schedule, to my habitry. Like I say habitry, which I don't think is a real word, but I can't wait to apply some of this information to execute what my ideas are. And I'm just getting more and more motivated as I'm going along. Also, I'm getting so many confirmations from God that like I'm going in the right direction. Yeah, me too. That it's like, the fear and the doubt or whatever that I have been experiencing previous to now is like really dissipating. Like I literally am like full force ahead. Like, we just gonna see what happens. We just gonna like see I just don't even care anymore. Just see what happens, right? Like it's just like I have to do this. It's
it's funny. First of all words are made up, so that's okay.
Oh, thank you. Habitry.
Yeah. That's what it's so funny that you get quotes from movies and then you be like, what? Thor said that in Avengers. He said, that's a made up word. He said, all words are made up. And I really started thinking about it, like,
all words are made up. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So habitry, right? That's a word. You coined it.
Thank you.
So
everyone remember this. This is live.
But what was the second thing I was going to say?
Well, I was saying that I was so excited for February.
Oh, man, the unknown, right? This is the thing where I think people get scared of the unknown. But if you go towards I've never heard of anybody saying that was the worst mistake of my life, that I followed my dreams into the unknown. I've never heard anybody say that. I've heard people say, because I went to the unknown, and because I stopped fearing, because failure is a made-up word. It's not made up, but failure is an opportunity. And because I kept pushing past it, now I'm the best version of myself, or possibly more. But that's all it is. If you want to, right? If you want to be a podcaster, just start. Because nobody was good at first.
Yeah.
The only person on this planet that was great when he was born was Jesus. Remember that. Everybody else had to work. David was a phenomenal king, but he was a shepherd as well, right? Joseph, he had to go to jail for 20 years. Noah had to build an ark and get laughed at. He was also, he liked wine. Mm-hmm. Abraham had, God told him to wait. He still had a child outside the wedlock.
And he was a little bit of a fibber.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you have to remember, nobody was really great at something. They're not born great. They become great by putting in the work over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's the unknown. Like, if I put in this work, will it come out on the other end? Yes. That's why when you put in work and you'll be like, man, how are these people doing these phenomenal things? Is because they've been doing it over and over and over again. And then they look up and then their book is written.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote a movie.
Or they built something, yeah.
Oh, man, I can't believe I built this community. Mm-hmm. It's because that I didn't know. I just bought a plot of land. And I just worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. So that's what I've gotten some really good verifications. And I think this year I'm just gonna go towards the unknown.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's what it is. Like, this is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is where we are. Like, God put us all on this earth for whatever reason it is, and it's up to us individually to figure out what it is that you're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the desire in your heart is. Yeah. And a lot of times, I was listening to something from Stephen Pressfield, who's a writer, and he was saying how and there's a book that Ryan Holiday wrote. I think it's called "Resistance is the Way," or "The Obstacle is the Way."
Do we have that?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I believe I have that. I have a couple of Ryan Holiday books.
Yeah,
I have a few Stephen Pressfield books too, and he was basically saying that of resistance. He was saying that, like, the way that you feel resistant to start on something, like for him writing or whatever, it's just like, first of all, once you get started, it's a wrap. Like, it's not a big issue. But then also, that's probably the thing you should be doing, right? The thing that you're scared to do, the thing that you're kind of like dreading, right? It's like, do that thing, and I bet you'll be better on the end of it. And it's like, this is who you're becoming.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I always think about this, and then we're going to get into this. I always think to myself, like, what if some of the greatest people that we know just decided ahead of time that they weren't good enough? Like, what if Martin Luther King was like, I don't like to speak in public? Or what if Oprah was like, I probably won't make it, so I'll just, be a nurse, right? What if Beyonce was like, I'll just be a science teacher? Or whatever, right? It's nothing wrong with those other occupations, but it's like, if you just never try, then you never know how great you could be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And don't believe what other people say.
Oh, man. I just was doing a memory verse.
Other people think about you.
You gonna make me get this out. There's a memory verse that I was just doing where Jesus was saying he overheard some haters, and he told the person Jarius, he told Jarius to do it anyway. Like, he, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't listen to them. And it was the story where the girl was dead, or they thought the girl was dead, but Jesus brought her back. It was part of my memory verse, and I should remember the verse, but I remember the story.
12-foot old girl, and he says he heard footsteps.
I need to get better at remembering the actual verses, but I don't care that I don't remember the number of the verse, because I remember all the stuff that happened around it.
Like,
and that's what I wanted to say about reading the Bible. And I know this is like a longer intro than normal, but I'm noticing that for me, it's making life easier, because I'm like, so first of all, God's not going to lie. He doesn't have any reason to lie. He keeps his promises. And the more I learn about what he does or what he has done, it makes so much sense as to like certain things that have taken place in my own personal life. But it's like, oh, this is how you pray. This is what he says. These are his promises. Like, this is what I can count on. So all of the other stuff that I just didn't know before is now coming and coming together and making sense, because I'm like, oh, this is what God does. It's so funny, because so many of us, like, you're a kid, you go to school, you do what your parents tell you to do, you survive your 20s, and then you somehow just like emerge with habits and thought patterns that you didn't really necessarily like work up yourself. And then I think there's this period of time, and maybe it's earlier for some people, where they're trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing, but nobody ever teaches you like how your brain works, and nobody ever teaches you like, certain things that would be beneficial to you. And I feel like the Bible is one of those things where if you don't read it for yourself with your own like thirst for understanding, there's so many things that are just going to not make sense to you. Because I'm just starting to, understand things myself as I'm reading. I'm like, oh, especially in Psalms. Okay. So anyway, guys, that was our long intro. We never do an intro that long, but that was a really good discussion.
It was good. All right, let's get into it. So right now we are.
It's written right here.
Oh,
we did First Chronicles. Oh man, I said Second Chronicles in the description, but I'll change it. We did First Chronicles 6, Psalms 81, 88, 92, 93, First Chronicles 7 through 10, and Psalms 102 through 104.
So okay. All right, so the Psalms 73, 77 through 78, there are...
I think we went over that last week.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're talking about First Chronicles 6.
First Chronicles 6. These are the descendants of Levi. So once again, the Bible, Chronicles is, think about what chronicle means, chronological. So I'm assuming Chronicles.
Oh,
that just came off of one.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I just thought about
Chronicles,
chronological. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's probably listing all the descendants.
Or the Chronicle is a name of a newspaper.
Yeah,
I feel like it's like what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Yep. So the Levites were the only tribe not given a location, being priest. What does this tell you about how God wants his people treated when they don't own much?
Oh, that's a good point, because I remember reading that, but I don't know what the answer says in here. Let's see. 1 Chronicles 6.
It just breaks down.
The Levites were the only tribe that not given a location, being priests. I do remember that the Levites, obviously were not Israel. They were not a part of the Israelites. But they were taken care of because they were the ones that were taking care of the tabernacle. We just read some of that today. What does this tell you about how God wants people treated when they don't own much? I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to you.
I think that because of the Levites and the priests, and because they're taking care of the tabernacle or the church, right? The tabernacle was like the first place where the sacrifice, the offerings happen, and the Sabbath and everything, and there's certain rituals that you have to. God talks, right? So it's only certain people that are allowed in certain areas of the tabernacle. And I think the answer to the question is God, if the Levites are always with the tabernacle and always get treated well because they're serving God. So I think when it says when it doesn't own much, I think what God is trying to imply is if the Levites are the priest, and the priest are worshiping me, and it's only the priest who can go into certain parts of the tabernacle, then they don't have to own the land because of the way that I treat them. You should treat them as well, because they're worshiping me and because they have specific access. I think that I'm gonna treat them well, and you should too. Like, because I think that I've never heard of the Levites not going out for food. I've never heard of Levites being in war.
No, they were warriors.
God is kind of protecting them
because it's kind of like against, like if you think about, like, I don't know. I'm not saying this is about anybody, but like if you're a warrior, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you then handle the Ark of the Covenant? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you then handle all that stuff when you're supposed to be so sacred, right? Yeah. Those things are so sacred, and certain people couldn't even touch certain things.
No, you'll die if you touch the Ark of the Covenant if you weren't supposed to. And then we were reading in Chronicles. Well, I guess we'll get to that, but we're reading how different tribes had different jobs when it came to the tabernacle.
So to answer this question, I would say I like your answer. I also would add to it, because I just found where it says like they were given from the tribe of Zebulun, Ramono and Tabor with their pasture lands, and on the other side of the Jordan, the east side, the Levites were given from the tribe of Reuben, Bezer in the wilderness, and Jazza with their pasture land. So they got a little bit of land, but it doesn't seem like much. And I think when I hear pasture lands, I feel like it's a rich land or something.
I think so, yeah.
But what I realize is that, you can do a lot with a little bit, especially when God is blessing you. So I think God, to answer the question, what does this tell you about how God wants people treated when they don't own much? I think people are to be regarded for who they are and what their value that they're bringing, and not necessarily for what they have.
Yes.
Because if you're just saying like, oh, the people who are the most wealthy or have the most land are the people who are the most respected. Like that's not necessarily the case, because the Levites were treated, you know what I'm saying, like rightfully like so, because they were doing this work that was close to God.
Yeah.
So I think
they like get protected, like, when they go to war, they get protected and everything.
I think that's really interesting. So that was a question took me completely off guard.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, moving right along. Psalms, a mixture. So we did Psalms 81, 88, 92 through 93. Authors and movies.
Ooh. Pick one of these Psalms.
Okay.
And reflect about how it applies to your life.
Now, let me tell you something.
I'm going to the most highlighted. That's what I do.
When I realized that, Chronicles, First Chronicles at least, because I don't think we've gotten the Second Chronicles just yet. When I realized that it's like a lineage, a genealogy or whatever, like that's fine and all. And I've got to ask for forgiveness because I kind of sped through a little bit once I caught the cadence of like, oh, this is the father of this person. This is the father of this person. There's this many people. It's just like when we were reading, I think it was Numbers, and it was like all of the lineage. But I think it's for repetition because the more I read it, the more connections I make. Like, oh, I know who that is. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, the son of Nun, Joshua, right? Like, it just started to come to me. But reading those genealogies can get kind of, tedious, I'll say, and like you kind of lose yourself, especially with all of the names that are difficult to pronounce. But reading these Psalms, can I tell you that reading these Psalms, it hits me so hard. And some of these are like my favorite scriptures, and a lot of it is just like prayer. And as we know, David wrote a lot of these, but some of these aren't written by David and that we were reading here. And what's interesting to me is some of them are talking about pain and suffering. Some of them are talking about like how good God is. Some of them are calling out for God's help.
Some of them talking about the creatures. Some talk about how great God is.
So I'm going to pick one of these Psalms out of 81, 88, and 92 through 93. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to say how it applies to my life. Okay, you go first.
This one is what we talked about off camera this week, and we constantly talk about it. And the reason that I'm picking this, because it was between this and 93. But because I'm learning how to be humble. And listen, I think reading the Bible and talking to God is when you're humble. Because everything else in life, it's they got the saying you can only be humble before the Lord, which is true. Because in life, you're just living life. But I picked 81.
Okay.
Oh, that my people would listen to me. And this one stands out to me. Verse 11 through 14. But my people did not listen to my voice. Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own counsels. Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would talk in my ways. I would soon subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Now, what this is about to me is that we forget how much God has done for us on a daily basis, and we complain. I complain when I wake up sometimes. And it's just like, why are you complaining? God has given you another life, another day to be great.
Yeah.
So I picked this song because it applies to my life, because I'm being honest with you guys. This reminds me to always look to him, stop complaining, and remember what he's done for me. So that's why I picked that song. And we talked about that earlier this week too. Faith called us over Isrealite.
Yeah, I am.
That's real. Me too. It's a real thing, guys. We forget.
I will say Psalm 92 only because I have marked this thing up so hard.
92 is
I'm looking at it. Psalm 92 is called a praise for the Lord's goodness.
So what if I pick 92?
Well, then we would just be
matching. Oh, because 92 is good. 92 is
all right,
good.
There's so much in here.
Yeah.
It is good and delightful thing to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness by night.
Yes.
That's real to me, that one line right there, which is Psalm 92:2. Yeah. Declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness by night. Because we just talked about how sacred the mornings are. Mm-hmm. And I remembered a few weeks ago, I was trying to figure out some of the verses that I read that talk about coming to the Lord with your requests in the morning. I think there's something to that. There's some hope in the morning that you realize that, like, okay, anything can happen today. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've listened to Joe Dispenza yesterday. Sometimes we get so caught up in the familiar past, and then we just automatically assume that, like, oh, today's gonna be like every other day. This week's gonna be like every other week. This month's gonna be like every other month. And it's like you don't know that, and you have to be hopeful and just connected to God, and He can, to create a different thing for you. So here's the thing. For you, O Lord, have made me glad by your works. Again, about the forgetting. Goes into 5. How great are your works, O Lord? Your thoughts are very deep, beyond man's understanding. Again, this is the Amplified version. Yes. There's so many times that I forget that. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever been, like, working on something, a project or math problem, I don't know, and then out of nowhere, like, you're taking a walk or you're in the shower or you wake up out of your sleep with the answer. You're like, I get it now. Like, all of a sudden something dawns on you or something clicks. And I feel like that happens a lot in my life with just different things, and all of a sudden it'll click to me. But before then, think about it, all the times before then when I tried to solve it, I didn't understand it. Right? And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, but it just means that there's so many instances in life that you don't have an understanding, and you just can't lean on your own understanding. You just can't trust yourself. Like, even just dealing with other people. And I find myself struggling with this quite a bit sometimes when I just don't understand why a person did that. Why would somebody do that? Why would so-and-so say it like that? Why would he be out here acting crazy? Why would blah, 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 blah? It's like all these questions. You find yourself asking all these questions because you don't understand. And maybe you're not meant to understand everything, but it's like you have to remember that you don't understand. And not be so judgmental, like, oh, this isn't right, or this is not, it's beyond me, so it must be wrong. I think a lot of times, we go there. So I like that. Psalm 92:5. And then the last part that I'll point out is, which one? Actually, 2 more parts. 7. That though the wicked sprout up like grass and all evildoers flourish, they will be destroyed forever. But you, Lord, are on high forever. So sometimes we see people winning and we think that they shouldn't be winning, especially if you're doing everything the way by the book, and then they seem to be coming up off some otherness. And then you just want to compare yourself and say, like, well, I deserve to have to win too. But it's not always about that. And sometimes people who do things the wrong way suffer consequences later, really all the time. Sometimes they're suffering consequences in real time. And you just don't know. You got to just be focused on your own self. So this definitely applies to me in my life. Not because I'm looking at what everybody's doing, but sometimes I look at what I'm doing and think to myself, I must have done something wrong if I don't have what I perceive the norm to be. Right? Oh, I really want this circumstance or achievement. And if everybody else has it and I don't, then something must be wrong. But I don't know how those people acquire those things. And it might not just be the time for me, going back to the whole lack of understanding thing. But it goes down into 12 to say, the righteous will flourish like the date palm, long-lived, upright, and useful. That's how I want to be. Long-lived, upright, and useful. I want to be valuable. They will grow like cedar in Lebanon, majestic and stable. And then moving along, it's like, they're basically saying the righteous will flourish.
That's all.
And so beyond all the other stuff of, like, because I go back and forth all the time about, like, whether I'm doing things right and all this, but it's like, if you just focus on doing what is good, like, there's just no bad side to that, right? Like, you're like, when you don't have to watch your back, you don't have to worry about, like, things falling away or having to keep up some facade or some lie. It's just like, you're just trying your best and you're just being as honest as you can. And that's kind of like how I'm learning to live my life. I mean, not that I wasn't living like that before, but now I'm just kind of like unapologetic about it. And it's like, this has to be the best way. And for me, like, I don't even want to find out if there's a better way, because this just seems real solid to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the one that I'll apply to my life. The reason that it applies to me is because I just said, I agree with all that stuff. Like, it hits me hard.
Yeah.
It's like, I have evidence of that I've lived. So it's like really cool. Psalm 92. Yeah, that's a good one.
It is. I had a lot of highlights in that one. All right. So now, 1 Chronicles 7 through 10. This is once again Chronicles, chronological order, names of sons and tribes and chiefs, you know. So it talks about
I don't like the way that's worded, but it's okay. This is not our wording. We're reading from the 365 daily Bible reading plan from teachsundayschool.com. Really great resources they have over there. They have lots of breakdowns, and this is not a sponsored video or anything like that, but this is what we're reading from. Yeah. This is kind of like what breaks down our week of reading, whatever we say, this is what we're reading next week or what have you. But some of their questions be really interesting, because a few months back when we were reading, they was talking about, like, why do you think America is like this? And it's like, oh, that's a really definitive statement. Do we know that America is like that? Or are we just reading the Bible?
Yeah.
So sometimes they say things and I'm like, oh, but this isn't necessarily one of those, but it's kind of making an assumption.
Yeah. The descendants of tribes, the sons and chief of Benjamin, who returned from exile in the death of King Saul. Then it says, it says the Jews were exacting record keepers. Did they know so many people would end up reading their work? And if so, what do you think they were trying to accomplish?
That whole thing to me is just like, look, it answers itself.
Yeah, like I just think
if they knew that people were going to read this, of course they wanted to be as accurate as possible, because you don't want somebody coming up behind your work finding flaws in your work.
I think exactly. Well, number one, God assisted in this, and we know how God is. He's very
concise,
very strict and concise with instructions.
Exact, yes,
very exact. So this is coming from God. What he's saying is they're going to be almost like they're going to be perfect, because it's coming from him through them,
Yeah, something else to clean this, because these are not working. I had a microfiber cloth, but whatever. Anyway, it's cool. I don't want to distract you from what you're saying. I apologize.
Oh no, but that's kind of it. It kind of answers his own question. I think because it was coming through God to them, then yes.
I think, okay, so it says they were exacting record keepers. Yeah. Did they know so many people would end up reading their work? I don't know. I don't know if they knew. I want to say no. Yeah, I knew they knew. I think they thought that some people would. You're not going to do something if nobody's ever going to find it.
I think they might be thought like their generations. I don't think they knew that this was going to be like millions and millions.
I don't think you could even fathom it. Yeah, right?
I think that they probably were like, this is going to be for my son's son. So they know where we came from, which makes sense. They didn't know this is going to be in one of the greatest, the greatest book ever.
Now, what were they trying to accomplish? Okay, so I'll say this. Records. Records. But as I'm reading through it, especially Chronicles, it reminds you of Numbers, but it's written differently. The words are a little different. They're kind of recapping. They're giving some numbers, but not as many numbers as we got in Numbers. But it's like they're just quickly saying, like, this was the father of this person, this was the father of this person, this was the father of this person. And I think the goal there is to remind you. Yeah. And I think we're probably going to run into this a couple more times in the Bible, because as we kind of get further and further down the line,
the lineage.
Right? You want to know who came from which tribe, who came from what, and maybe there's some sort of connection to like what they are doing to where they came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that plays a role in it, but I think what they were trying to accomplish by this is just bridging. It's just a reminder.
Yeah.
And they didn't go into great detail. They just really quickly gave a recap, and then they highlighted some things, like when they got to Joshua, right, son of Nun, right? Like, oh, I remember that. Like when they got to Saul's folks, they had a few sentences around King Saul, and then they did it again. And there's certain people who we recognize that had like major stories in the Bible, and they literally kept account of all of these other people. And I remember some of these other names, but I mean, I could never like memorize them. I was like, never, but it would be difficult to memorize all of these names, especially since some people were named after their grandparents. It's just like you see like somebody maybe named Azul or something. I don't think there was an Azul because that's like blue in Spanish. But anyway, let's say you see somebody named
Uzi,
ASAP or something like that, and then a few generations later you get another one.
Yep.
Right, or somebody named John, and then you get a few years. I don't think there's a. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it was like they probably didn't know so many people were going to read this, but they knew that it would be ended up getting read, and I think they were trying to accomplish a recap.
Yeah.
And
for their people, for their generation.
And at this point, I'm not really sure if all the books were kept together.
Probably not.
Right?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think they were.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Ethiopia, they found the oldest Bible. It's like 100-some years old.
And I'm sure we're going to get to this, but I wonder when they stopped writing the Bible. And how did they know they were finished? I'm sure God probably told them. But like you think about now, like we read all these books and stuff, and it's obviously not the Bible. We're not writing the Bible. We're not reading the new Bible type of thing. But it's interesting to me because it's just an accounting of what was happening, along with some examples of like how God wants you to live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, we could be doing those studies present day, but it's not, it's not secret or anything like that. Anyway, that's my take on that. I think that's what they were trying to accomplish. All right. Are we on the fourth question?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we read Psalms 102, 103, and 104. This question is very interesting. It says, name some of the differences between the three Psalms and when could each be useful to you?
All right, I'll just go by the name. Psalms 103 was a praise for the Lord's mercies.
Yeah.
Psalms 103. Oh, sorry, that was 103. I should have started with 102.
Okay, what was 102?
So 102 was prayer for an afflicted man.
Yeah.
For mercy on himself and on Zion.
Yeah.
103 was a praise for the Lord's mercies.
Yeah.
So we got a prayer for an afflicted man, a praise for the Lord's mercies, and the third is the Lord's care over all his works.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those were the differences.
So the difference is, is that one is afflicted, one is asking, or actually is praising God for having mercy, and the other one is just saying, "Look at all the Lord has done."
Yeah, look how
and that one really got me. I really got into all of these, honestly, but
that one was like how great he how great he was.
I can tell you. All right, just because the last one was my favorite. I mean, I can say my favorite. Well, yeah, I think I highlighted a bunch in 102 as well. But I got to go to 104 because that was the one right there, man. Mm-hmm. When he went back and said, and I don't know who wrote this. Was it David?
I don't know. No. This is
the Lord's,
I don't know.
The Lord's care over all his work. Psalms 104. Psalm 104. I feel like this could be useful to me every day because it's like you just remember how much God has done. It's like you can't even know how much God has done. Yeah. But when you think of these particular things about like even the sea, right? The way that first of all, there's so many creatures in the sea that we could never even number them. They went back to the sea creature, the monster again. And that's something that is also interesting to me. But to think that the beach water, right? Like that the ocean water comes up and knows when to stop. And like, you have hurricanes and stuff like that, but for the most part, the water stays back and it doesn't just get unruly. It's like, what is governing that, right? That's just one example.
We haven't even been to the part, like deep part to the ocean.
Hello, and what is governing those things? But these are life forces that are just happening. Also, I'll bring up Antarctica.
I feel like it's some big creatures down there.
What in the world is happening over there in Antarctica? So we have no idea, and we can't be inhabitants of Antarctica for all year round. So there's some things that are happening over there that are obviously orderly, because it hasn't blown up and man hasn't been able to ruin it. And I feel like God created all of this. There's certain things that you just can't explain with a big bang. You know what I mean? So it's just like the way our bodies are made, the way they heal themselves, the way, certain things like yoga and meditation and breathing can heal you. It's like everything you have, if you get a nick or something on your hand and it heals itself, the way a baby is born, right? And like the woman has everything in her body, the way that a baby is conceived, like there's all of these things. The way that the remember in Babylon when they tried to build a stairway to heaven or whatever, and it's like you can't do that. But this is where I'll end it. I remember maybe last year, maybe the year before, when all these billionaires were like going out in outer space, and they sent William Shatner, and he came back, and his interview was so powerful to me, because he was like, if you don't believe in God, good luck, because obviously something made this. He was like, the way you shoot up into off of the surface of the earth, and there is this barrier protecting gravity, right? Like, so everywhere else out in this universe, it's cold and dark, and light doesn't hit things the way it does on Earth. But then we have this like sort of protected environment where gravity exists, and there's air, and these things don't exist, but what is protecting it? And the fact that we are, like going around the sun, it's like so many things that God did this. So it's like, when you sit there and read Psalm 104 and you're just reminded of these few things, it's like, oh, my little problem ain't nothing to God.
Yo, you sent me something, and this is very vital. I watched it, and the scientist was like, why don't you explain? He was like, why don't you explain, I remember that. Is there a God? And he said, okay, you need time, space, and matter. And God said, in the beginning, he created heaven and earth. He said, time, space, or matter doesn't exist for God. God doesn't know anything about time. He does. It just doesn't. It doesn't affect him. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't. He created the earth with 3 words, right? He said, when he said, let there be heavens, right? He said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's your time, space, and matter. In the beginning is the time. The space is the heaven and the earth. And the matter is the earth. When he broke it down and said that, I said, wow.
Yeah.
So, like, if you think that dinosaurs, mammoths, dogs, cats, humans if you think it's been created off an explosion and you don't believe in God, you have to be out of your mind.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
There's no, like, we didn't just like appear of an explosion.
I mean,
something created us.
So then my question would be, why hasn't there been another Big Bang?
Yeah.
And then also, what are the things that...
what are all these planets that we're starting to find that like are very similar to Earth?
It's really interesting. Man. Anyway, that's not what we're here
God is... all of us saying is this. God created the heavens and earth.
So look, so the difference between you, I feel you. No, you're absolutely right.
That's all I'm saying.
But name some differences between. Okay, so since I went over 104, when could each of 102 and 103 be useful? I said when 104 could be useful. Anytime you forget that God works miracles, 104 is useful. 102,
103. Let's do 103.
Okay.
Praise for the Lord's mercy. Yeah. So. This is basically saying, I will say a verse out of here, and this is basically saying how merciful God is, right? Listen to Psalms 103 verses 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. I highlighted those too.
Yeah. Who forgives all your iniquity? Who heals all your diseases? Who redeems your life from the pit? Who crowns you with the steadfast love and mercy? Who satisfies you with good so that your youth is renewed like the eagles? This is God being merciful, because anytime you go through something in life, he saves you from it. Mm-hmm. So I think this reminds, to answer the question how this could be useful to you, is this reminds you, like 104, how great God is. This reminds you how merciful he is.
Yeah.
How loving he is. Mm-hmm. How every time that you were feeling bad or didn't think you were going to get out of the situation, you look back at it now and you laugh. That's God.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Okay, Psalm 102 is more like a darker one. Man, and whoever wrote this is saying, like, hear my prayer, hear it now, right? And like, this is an impatient person, kind of like me. Yeah, it's like, oh, I need these blessings right away today. But in Psalm 102:4, he says, or she, I don't know, my heart has been struck like grass and withered, indeed absorbed by my heartache. I forget to eat my food because of the sound of my groaning and suffering and trouble. Like, it's like this person is just lamenting. They're just like pouring out their soul, just saying like how awful things are. And then I want to say towards the end, maybe 25, at the beginning you founded the earth, the heavens, and work in your hands. They're basically saying that God is going to outlive everything, right? Like, as you said, time doesn't exist to him. And then you remain the same. So Psalm 102:27, you remain the same and your years will never end. The children of your servants will continue in their descendants and you'll be established before you. So it's like, you have to realize when you're going through some pain, and I don't want to say this because, you know, people are going through things. And I mean, like, we're all going through things, but some people have it worse than others. And so I'm grateful. But I think it's interesting. You have to remember that God is with you and other things are happening. Mm-hmm. So if he let it come to pass, then it's going to be okay. As painful as it might be. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like there's dark, there's light. So you just have to, like, just ride it out and just be, you know, connected to God. I mean, I hate to say that, so, you know, what is it, nonchalantly, but it is a real thing. It's like God is with us. So anything that we're going through with him if we, you know, connect ourselves to him. And so, you know, I guess this will be useful. Psalm 102. And here's one thing. It's so dramatic the way it's written. And we do know that some dramatic things have already happened in the Bible. So I don't know exactly who wrote this one, but it's somebody pouring out their heart. It says, "Mine overwhelmed," and pours out his complaint to God. Mm-hmm. But if this person is feeling so descriptively awful and bad, like you saw what happened with David, we saw what happened with Job, right? If this person is feeling so bad like this, then hopefully you could use this, right? This verse and others to understand that, like, God's going to bring you through this, just like he has done for thousands and thousands of years. And that's what this verse can be used for. That's me answering the question. How could each verse be useful? So when you're going through something really tough, maybe you want to hear about somebody who's going through something tough and how they made it through too, you know? Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So that's that, guys. All right, guys. Any shout outs? Actually, I do have a shout out, but I can't remember it right now. I do have a shout out. So anyway, I'll give a shout out first and foremost to, yes, I'm a unicorn. You're going to be seeing content over there. I know I keep saying that, guys, but I'm working on a lot of things. So those two sisters over on Miss Damita Jo's channel, if you don't know who she is, you need to check her out. She shouts out Black businesses all the time. We work very closely on our show that we have, our podcast called Those Live with Those Two Sisters on Thursday nights. Now, that is not rated PG. So when you come on over there, you know, have a little grace. It's just two sisters talking. So we like to do that, and we would love your support. I would give a shout out to fourth quarter, but I know he's going to do that. I'm going to let you go because I got to remember the other thing that I wanted to give a shout out to, the other person. So go ahead. What you got?
I want to shout out to fourth quarter, where it's and I'm going to rev that up too. I'm going to start being. You're just going to get more content out of me, and we go live every Wednesday around 7:15. So, look for us. It's me and my friends, and we just talk about all the all what's going on in sports from a fan's perspective. So I think y'all should definitely tune in. I love sports. I'm passionate. Faith to tell you. I'm always on the up and up. I'm always watching interviews by sports. I'm excited. Lawrence Taylor's getting interviewed. I can't wait for that. I look forward to that like a kid in a candy store. Just like hearing from great legends of this, of something I'm passionate about. So I love like Mike Tyson interviews, stuff like that. But that's just what I'm passionate about. And then, that's it. That's the only shout out. I got another one. Something's coming down the pipe, guys. I'm really excited about it. But that's coming really soon. I can't wait to announce that. That'll be cool. But Faith,
I still can't remember. I'm just gonna go back to what I said last week because I've still been enjoying Chrystal Hurst Evans, and her content. So. Oh, thank you. Sorry. She's definitely been a blessing. I love her content. She's so motivating to me. And it kind of gives me some light as to what it's not like I'm going to be doing the same thing she's doing. She's obviously, a person that is, great. And her family has done so much. But watching her is giving me something. It's definitely inspiring me. And I know that my, particular gift is more so about like planning and organizing, but there's something that she's giving me. Maybe it's like mentorship or something that I'm getting from her, but I'm just loving every little thing that she's doing and being so transparent over on her channel. And so I'm definitely going to link her. I think I linked her last week, but if I didn't, I'm going to make sure that I correct that. But just another shout out to Chrystal Hurst Evans. For sure. Oh, you know who else? This is so funny. So we watched this Fridays with Tab and Chance. I want to give a shout out to Chance. This is Brown, right? Like that's her name. Okay, so Tabitha Brown's husband, Chance. He's hilarious. And one thing that I've noticed about him recently is like he loves to say, "I ain't Tab." Nope. I love them both, but it's so funny because now I'm starting to like see him, I guess, more, and I think he's hilarious. And
and we shout out to Kevin on stage and his
his wife too. Don't give me the line. I don't want to get right now,
but they have a podcast.
That was a good one.
Where they interview other married couples.
So they have a book coming out, if it's not out already, called Marriage Be Hard. They're doing these.
It's a real thing, though. People don't want to talk about that.
They're doing a podcast format where they're talking to other couples. I don't know how they're going to keep this. I don't know if they're going to keep it going after the book release, but oh man, I've already seen a couple of episodes, at least one. I think I saw.
We're gonna watch. But
it's so good.
Kurt Franklin one this week.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm really enjoying it.
Next week we'll watch.
So we'll link them down below too because Kevin on stage is hilarious.
Do that in the future. That'd be
interesting. Hilarious couple.
Interview couples about
marriage. Well, let's do what we're doing now.
All right, yeah, guys.
But anyway,
that might be future stuff.
We're so excited. If you're catching us on the replay, let us know what you think about Psalms, and let us know, that you were here.
Yeah.
As always, our mission is to, encourage a community of Bible readers. Yes, we do want to say that. We're going to encourage a community of people to read the Bible for themselves. I'm telling you, there's so much to get out of this. It's more than what I thought it would be. I thought I would get a level of accomplishment out of actually doing what I said I was going to do, but there's so much instruction in life. Life instruction in this book, like you need to read it. If you walking through this life and you haven't read the Bible, like I'm telling you from experience now that it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things that you're trying to figure out on your own, and there's already information and literature here for you to use that will make your life easier.
There's already a map.
So anyway, so next week we're going to be reading. Do you want to say?
Yeah, next week we're going to be reading 2 Samuel verse 5. 2 Samuel. 5 verses 1 through 10. Then 1 Chronicles 11 through 12. Psalm 133. I like that one. It's one of my favorite psalms.
Okay.
Psalms 106 to 107. And then 2 Samuel 5, 11 through 25. 2 Samuel 6, verses 1 through 23. And 1 Chronicles 13 to 16. So we're probably reading like a story.
Yeah, I'll have to put that up somewhere so you can see what we're reading next week. Yeah. I used to tweet it out. I haven't used Twitter in quite a while, but maybe I'll tweet it, and you'll find it there. But thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. As we always say, don't take our word for it. Go to the source. Read your Bible.
All right, guys.
Bye, guys. Peace.
Bye.